Good evening and welcome to the May 2nd, 2018 meeting of the Public Works Committee of the Abington Township Board of Commissioners. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioners Hecker?
Here.
Rothman?
Here.
Coe?
Here.
Bowman?
Here.
Brodsky?
Here.
Thank you. First order of business this evening is to consider approving the minutes of the April 4th, 2018 Public Works Committee meeting. And do I have a motion to approve?
Moved.
Is there a second? Yes. Are there any additions or corrections from members of the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The Public Works Committee has 3 items of new business this evening. The first is PW 01-051018, and this is for us to consider a motion approving a contract with McMahon Associates Incorporated in the amount of $25,500 for traffic engineering design services at Fitzwater Town Road and Woodland Road / North Hills Avenue intersection improvement project for the 2016 cycle award of the Greenlight Go grant, and authorizing the township manager to execute the contract and related documents.
Second.
Are there any questions for members of the committee? Are there any comments or questions from commissioners? Commissioner Klein.
So just as something for the staff, the county just opened up a transportation grant program. $1 million has been allocated towards it, and the single qualification is that the municipality puts the application in and received a Greenlight Go grant, both in 17 or 18. The 18s haven't been actually awarded yet, so we should potentially take a look at that and be able to pick that, go for that grant application. So the information's on the County Planning Commission's website, and I'll be sitting on the first committee going through those grant applications.
And which grant program is that?
It's the Montgomery County Transportation Grant. I mean, it's on the county Planning Commission's website.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions from members of the board? Any comments from staff? From members of the audience? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. PW2 is for us to consider a motion to establish a possible Mill Road Sewer District project and to authorize the solicitor to prepare the necessary documents and the township manager to execute the appropriate documents. Are there questions from members of the committee? From members of the board? Any comments from staff? Any comments from members of the audience? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And our last item of new business, PW3, and this is for us to consider a motion to appoint McMahon Associates as the primary traffic engineer and traffic planning and design as the conflict traffic engineer, and Pannoni Associates as reviewing traffic engineer for traffic safety matters, and BCM engineers for stormwater management, and Boucher and James Consulting Engineers as general consulting engineer and conflict stormwater management engineer. All firm rates are to be no greater than the rates provided in Exhibit 1, approved consulting engineer firm rates. And are there questions for members of the committee? Yes, Commissioner
I guess this is directed to the solicitor. I may have to recuse myself from this one because I'm currently working with Pannoni on a large project I'm working on right now. So would I have to recuse myself from this?
If you are receiving any, wait, I have to press the button. I'm new at this. If you are receiving any compensation from Pannoni, or if your vote this evening in any way will result in you or a family member receiving any financial benefit, you'd have to recuse yourself, abstain. But if not, you can vote on it.
All right, thank you. Okay.
And, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just as broad knowledge, in essence, what we're doing is we're affirming how it's been done, with the exception of adding Boucher and James as general consulting. And in fact, in speaking with Ms. Montgomery, we're talking today about also adding the ability for BCM to do general consulting, not just stormwater. So we may want to, make a motion to add that piece of it. But in essence, the township has been using McMahon for many, many years, as the narrative indicates. So this is really an affirmation as a professional
Of
service.
current practice, with the exception of expanding BCM to do general consulting.
Correct. And setting forth the specific rates for the period of time that you would normally appoint.
Got it, understood.
It's just something to...
Is there a reaction to the suggestion from the township manager about broadening the motion to include BCM engineers engaging in general consulting in addition to just stormwater management? If there's no objection, then I would recommend that we add that to the motion for consideration. Agreed. Okay. Are there other comments from staff?
Wait, did you do other board members? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, no, I think I asked a specific question about that piece. If you have a general question, please go
I
ahead.
have a general question.
Yeah,
on
go ahead.
My button's on.
Okay.
My question is on Pannoni, and I thought, and maybe this is using them in a different context, but I thought Pannoni had an engineer that was covered by a grant so that when we ask questions, we're not being charged for
Right.
that until perhaps the grant runs out at the end of the year or something like that. But for our initial traffic questions to Pannoni, aren't we covered already? I mean, we're not going to be paying for something that we would normally get for free, right?
The answer is yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, you are correct. Currently, when Officer Freed goes to look at traffic safety, the LTAP program currently is Pannoni. So he often works with them in doing an assessment as a traffic engineer. But there are times when we've gone outside of that where either he's not available, and the reason Pannoni is only here as traffic safety is for continuity, so it's another Pannoni engineer. Or what's not on the agenda tonight, as you recall, we had discussions over the traffic safety issues and what do we do if, commissioner wants to appeal, so to speak, the determination of the traffic safety manager, that we would stay with the same firm. So in essence, I don't know how much this is going to be used, but it's authorization to use. And frankly, part of the discussion is going to be if we're going to take this path of using someone at Pannoni or another firm, then we're going to have to discuss money to pay for it because there's really no money to pay for these requests, to your point. So as of right now, when Al does something, yes, he goes to LTAP, who is currently Pannoni. Doesn't mean it'll always be Pannoni.
Okay, but our first priority would be to use Pannoni.
The process that the chief and I are working on now, which will be in front of you in June, will be to make sure that everything still goes through Al, that when Al needs it reviewed, he'll go to the LTAP consulting engineer, who is currently Pannoni, and then he'll make a determination. If the commissioner's not satisfied with that or wants to take another look and have a traffic engineer, what we're suggesting is that that's going to take additional money. This is to establish the fact that this is the rate you're going to pay at. This won't get activated unless the commissioners want it to be activated. But we're establishing the rates for all people. So yes, you're correct. The initial will be at no cost because it's through LTAP. But if a commissioner, as we have in the recent past, such as with Canterbury, where we wanted to look at doing something more that required engineer coming out, a traffic engineer coming out, someone else from Pannoni came out to look at it for a determination. We had to pay them. This is establishing what that rate's going to be. But it's only driven by when the commissioners request it.
So the grant only covers one engineer at Pannoni, and if we're consulting with another engineer at Pannoni, we have to pay for that.
That's correct.
Okay, but we would always first use the engineer that's covered by the grant?
That's going to be the recommendation and the policy that the chief and I are going to be recommending to you.
And is this a situation where you ask 20 people for an opinion and you get 20 different answers?
No, it's very specific. It's the reason I selected Pannoni in this is because Al uses Pannoni, so to stay within the same firm, they can consult with one another and either confirm or concur or not. You're just getting two different It's like lawyers. You ask two different lawyers, you get a
Well,
different opinion.
that was my point.
Forgive me, all you lawyers, but you might get a different opinion. So it's really to have them, if the second engineer comes into it, it's not covered under the grant. So if we want a second engineer to partner with the primary one who's reviewing it, who's not always available. For example, the engineer that we use is from State College. So there have been times when we were looking at Canterbury, he couldn't come out. Or if we wanted to look at Jericho, the other traffic engineer would come out from the same firm, but we'd have to pay for that because it's outside of LTAP.
Okay. Thank you.
To further clarify on that, would there ever be a time when we're looking at traffic safety-related matters that we wouldn't go to LTAP first?
Not under the policy that the chief and I are going to be recommending.
So to your point, Commissioner Myers, I think the attempt will always be to cover it under the
That's
grant
correct.
funded, but there may be circumstances where additional opinion is necessary or requested, and this policy would cover our approach to doing that, should that request arise from one of the commissioners.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay.
And the only other time it would come into play is, let's just say, for example, that we have a land development plan that comes in. The engineers involved in that project are two of the other traffic engineers that we have on here. They become conflict engineers. So if a developer comes in and they're two companies, there might be two companies, maybe PennDOT has TPD as their reviewing engineer, and the applicant has McMahon as their applicant engineer, then we can use Pannoni as our reviewing engineer, and it's already established as a conflict engineer. So you're basically establishing what the rates are and who's conflict engineer and who's not.
Thank you. Did you have a question, Commissioner Spindler?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Hecker. A question for the manager. Mr. Manfredi, within Pannoni, the engineers who consult within LTAP, that's a separate group from the ones who would come out if we required separate from LTAP, right? Is that a separate, or basically they cordon off the LTAP people to only do LTAP consulting?
And Al can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but LTAP offers certain services under the state contract at no cost as part of that grant program that the commissioner is referring to. But if you want to go beyond that, or if they render an opinion that, for example, like we did on Jericho or some other, that you want a different opinion, you have to pay for that.
Right.
One other question, Mr. Manfredi. So in Exhibit 1, there is a row for annual increase and what the conversation has been. And it looks like Pannoni is the only one that provided or asked for some provision for there to be a standardized rate increase of 2 to 4%. So with the other firms that would be doing business, the expectation is the rate is the rate.
Current rates. Now, the interesting thing is, Ms. Montgomery, when we went out for a specific proposal from BCM, their language in their agreement basically wanted to change the rates. So when we establish this, we're going to tell them, if you want your proposal to be successful, you'll keep them at these rates.
Got it.
So that's the kind of stability we're looking for by establishing what rates we're willing to pay, so that they'll either accept this and change their proposal, or we'll give it to somebody else.
Right. Makes sense. Thank you. Other comments or questions from members of the board? Okay. Any comments, further comments by staff? And comments from members of the audience?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. I would ask, too, if there's any way of turning up the sound a little bit on the microphones. I had to turn my sound up so high that I'm getting all the paper scratchings in it, so I know that the sound's lower than usual. The question that I have, and I don't fully understand how all of this comes together, but my concern is that if we have all of these people as our go-to people, and I'm not sure exactly how that's changing, but I hope that you will offer a greater explanation of that. There was really no explanation of that in the documents in the packet. My concern is that if we have a project and we have all these go-to engineers, a good portion of the project actually can be blocked out and done by in-house. So instead of it just going out to bid and having the competitive bidders bid it, my concern is that the project may end up coming, for instance, down below the $25,000 that you need to bid out, just because you have asked for parts in here and parts there and parts somewhere else because you have all these engineers on staff, so to speak. That's my concern, is that we will lose the advantage of having the bid. So is there a way that you could explain to me how this doesn't do that? Because the bid is very important, and many of us would like to go to open bids, where, you know, literally the closed bid system is somewhat skewed, shall we say. I've had
I'm gonna
reason to see it.
Turn to the manager, but my understanding from what you've described here this evening is we are setting the rate at what we will pay for their services in this schedule moving forward, and that would be the negotiated rate, and based on the amount of hours on the project, the fee is the fee, as opposed to going through a bid process. Am I correct about that?
In professional services, you're not required to bid.
Right.
However, we always seek a number of proposals. So all we're saying is, for example, we sought a proposal from one of these firms for a project that the engineering department is working on right now.
Yep.
That proposal asked for fluctuating rates for at the time that the service is provided. So if the project went on for a year and their rates increased, our costs would increase also. What we're saying is, no, we're capping those rates at this, or you're not going to be allowed to do the proposal. There is nothing in this that is saying that we are not going to seek competitive proposals.
Okay.
Commissioner Hacker?
Yes, Commissioner Klein.
Follow-up question. So, and I'm looking at what they're being hired for in some cases, and maybe a fair amount of cases, the fees that are being charged by these engineers will also go back to the developer
Yes,
or
correct.
for the land development under a professional service agreement.
That is correct.
So, you know, these are for spot-specific things that are going to happen. Some of them will get reimbursed through the professional service agreement, and any other projects that are actually, you know, have a defined scope will actually be bid out or will get defined fees for.
That is correct.
Thank you.
So if I hear correctly, I mean, the answer is this is to provide us with more leverage in setting a cap in what the maximum we would entertain. It's not to preclude there being a competitive process to get, the most cost-effective service.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other comments from members of the audience? Okay. So hearing none, I will be seeking a motion to entertain the proposal as listed with the addition that we would be considering BCM engineers for both stormwater and management and general consulting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So that concludes the formal agenda for the Public Works Committee meeting this evening. We're now at the point in the meeting where we will entertain public comment on general matters of Public Works. And if there are none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.
It's called to order the Administrative Code and Land Use Agenda, and Land Use Committee for May 2nd, 2018, and may I have a roll call, please?
Sanchez?
Here.
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 Here. Here.
Everybody is here and accounted for, and we will start with a motion to approve the minutes of the April 4th, 2018 Administrative Code and Land Use Agenda Committee meeting, and I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments or corrections to the minutes?
No, sir.
Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. I believe we move right into unfinished business, and this is an item that has been bumping along here for a few times, and I see the applicant in place, Mr. Hurling, and I see Mr. Rose, his consulting engineer back there as well. This is whether to consider approving the land development application submitted by ABH Builders Incorporated for the vacant property located at 1043 Easton Road, Abington, PA 19001. And whenever you're ready, it's Mr. Hurling, right?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Sanchez.
Good evening.
Hello, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm back with some elevations. Last meeting, you wanted to see a little more detail. One of your constituents came out, and I actually met with him earlier today.
Great.
Showed him our 4 elevations, the site plan, answered all the questions that he has, and he seems satisfied. I don't see him here tonight, So I just want to show you what we came up with. This is the front elevation looking from Easton Road.
And you were going over the landscape plan with him, that
Correct.
was
And
the
I'll
nature
get
of
to
his
that.
question?
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
This is an elevation from the driveway as you're driving into the development. 3 of the 4 units face the new proposed driveway. This is the rear of the building. And lastly, this side, the parking lot view. So when you get out of your car, this is what you kind of see. There'll be a light there shining on the parking lot. The next picture we have is the site plan. As you can see, the new driveway here with approximately 10 to 11 parking spots. Unit 1, 2, 3, 4. Unit 2, 3, and 4 face the proposed driveway. Unit 1 faces Easton Road. You can see all the bushes and trees that we've placed throughout the green area per your ordinance. And lastly, there's a stockade 6-foot fence running along the entirety of the property line to buffer the property from neighbors for any concerns they may have.
Great. Looks very, I like the, not that you were asking my opinion on it, but I like how the front faces Easton Road, and then you kept the side.
I like your opinion,
facing that.
too.
Yeah, great. Thought you might. It's great, and that's I presume that stretch of brownish gray along Easton Road is the illustrious sidewalk.
That's the illustrious sidewalk, approximately 4 feet wide by 100 feet. You have a crosswalk here and a little tapered area, depressed curb. Other than that, trash can areas in the rear, common sidewalk out to the new public sidewalk.
Great. Okay, I will open it up to Commissioner Gillespie.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure, these are rentals, but they're townhomes, right? They're not apartments.
They're not apartments.
I'm reading
They're
apartments.
townhomes, side by side.
Right.
Each unit has its own front door, no common anything really other than the parking and
Just in reading, it
sidewalks.
says apartments, and I'm thinking.
It says
these are
apartments for technical reasons for your ordinance, but they will eventually be condominiums for individual sale.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Spiegelman.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. I think all my questions were answered. I'm not going to hit you with any more questions. I want to say thank you very much, Mr. Hurling. Thank you for, thanks to you and to Engineer Montgomery for meeting with Mr. Shima today. I unfortunately, due to an emergency, was not.
Nick also met
Oh,
with Mr. Schimmer as well, yeah.
thank you, sir.
Yeah.
A fine engineer. I was, due to an emergency, I was unable to attend, but I know I had spoken with the resident last night and asked him to just make a list of all remaining questions and issues, sort of, and sort of go through them one by one, get plain English and straight number answers, and it sounds to me like that happened today.
We had a booklet. We went through it, and I think we answered them all.
Excellent. The booklet is always very intimidating. So anyway, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for the renderings. I feel like I can now picture what the little townhouses are going to look like, and let's move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other commissioners? Any comments from the audience? All right, hearing none, I will make a motion that we approve the land development application submitted by ABH Builders for the property located at 1043 Easton Road, Abington, PA 19001.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. The motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez,
And it-
board.
We'll have your, at the full board meeting next week, we'll do it, but you won't have to make the full I mean, maybe we'll have it loaded if there's any questions from anybody that happens to show up, but it should be smooth sailing from here. All right.
I'll have a few more questions by then. How depressed is the depressed curve? Can we make it less depressed? I feel bad for it.
And we thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
meeting
Good
with the
night.
resident and coming back. All right, with that, one matter of unfinished business concluded. We have no new business, so we will take public comment on general matters of administrative code or land use. Not mandatory to make a comment. Be pleased to conclude this portion of the meeting. Good evening.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. So do we have any response at all yet on the BET project?
This is public.
From the Planning Commission?
This is public comment, so usually people make the comments within the 3-minute span, but we don't have anything more than was discussed at the Planning Commission meeting that night.
Okay, so my concern is where that's going to go when it comes back out. And what my prime comment for you tonight in the code enforcement is, in reference to that issue, is the fact that you have no obligation to entertain this change of zoning from developers. The things that have been coming in, as you know, are quite contrary to what the citizens who vote, who elect you to serve what their wishes are, quite contrary to what they want. And yet, we are seeing them having to mount unbelievable challenges. They need to spend their time, research, coordinate grassroots movements, get out information. They need to consult lawyers. It's an unbelievable expense. It's an unbelievable threat to them and time commitment. And I think all of you know that. So what I would like is to have all of you suggest on behalf of your residents to make a process where anyone who wants to change the zoning significantly, and I'm not talking about adding a porch or something else. We have a process for that, and we have a process for general waivers. But when somebody wants to get around the waiver process and wants to change the whole zoning because that's the only way they can do it, if all 15, well, if 8 of the 15 of you say yes, they only need 8 people to say yes. The rest of the township can go pound sand. And that's what the problem is with this new method of getting their waivers, okay? I think it was 24 waivers the Wawa needed, but they went around and got 8 people to say yes. So what I would like to ask each of you on behalf of the people that you serve is that you craft and put forth a policy that says that anybody who wants to change the zoning in that manner and avoid the system that we have in place of waivers and variances and so on, where residents have a legal right to have their zoning heard. First, they must go to the residents and get the residents' approval that the residents would like this change. And then you can cut out the constant threat to some residents. These particular residents with the BET project have been threatened on every front by Rydell Waters, by the Brandolini.
Your time has expired, ma'am. Thank you for your comments.
Year after year. And the other thing is just
There's no other thing. Your time has expired. Okay. Thank you for your comments. With that, can we have a motion to adjourn? Or if there are no other comments?
Seconded.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Public Safety Committee meeting, are there any changes or additions? Anybody? So we will have a motion to approve the minutes. Sorry.
So moved.
And there's no corrections. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We have a very short agenda this evening because we have no agenda items, but we do, I believe, have a presentation for announcements from our chief, or no?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I just have a few things I just want to update you on what's going on in the police department. Over the last 2 weeks, we had department-wide training where we put 92 sworn officers and all of our civilian officers through standardized training. And I have to thank the Human Relations Commission who conducted some of this training on bias-based policing and implicit bias, a subject, a difficult subject for people from the outside to come in and teach. And I will tell you they did an outstanding job. So I want to thank personally Shelley Rosenberg, Rosemary Jenkins, Joanne Kleiner, and John Karen for the great job that they did. Included in that training, we had a segment on law enforcement ethics, we had active shooter training, we had our TASER recertification, and it was a big commitment of time and resources over the last couple of weeks, and our final training day is tomorrow. During this training time, we also presented 60 commendations to our officers, and among the jobs were AED, CPR, life-saving jobs. I know you guys have heard a couple of these cases over the years, de-escalation cases, suicide of subjects, suicide by cop, bank robbery, organized burglary, rings, organized retail theft, the skimmer investigation. So we take this time once or twice a year to get together and recognize the efforts of all the officers. So some incredible work, including the job that we had on Jamestown Road not too long ago. Let's see what else I have here for you guys. Our emergency management coordinator, Tom McEnany, along with our SWAT officers and other instructors in the department over the last 7 or 8 weeks, conducted active shooter response training for all the school district officials, the teachers, staff, and other support groups in the school district. They also followed up with that, and they attended, 1 or 2 officers attended each PTO meeting with every senior high, junior high, and all the elementary schools throughout the township. And a couple more institutions, Penn State University, Manor College, Elkins Park Presbyterian Church, Cedar Tree Preschool, and the Center School were all organizations that we went out and did this active shooter violence in the workplace training. Community policing, as we do mention a couple upcoming events. We have our DARE graduation tomorrow evening. I'm not sure, I think there was a miscommunication where the commissioners were not formally invited to that, so I know this is short notice. Tomorrow night at the Abington Senior High, May 3rd will be the public school graduation. The parochial school graduation will be at St. Basil's on May 16th. I believe that's also at 7 p.m. That's in your ward if you could attend. It's really a great event. The 24-hour relay challenge organized by CAP is on May 19th, Saturday, at our junior high school. Alfred, our traffic safety manager, asked me to remind you about the traffic blitz, which will take place in June. You can get signs from Officer Freed. Contact him. He has all the signs that you can get the last week of May. And let me see, I think I covered about nothing else going on, right? And I guess you guys knew that we were pursuing a body-worn camera program. In light of the events this last few days, we are about to put 2 training and evaluation body-worn cameras on the street in specific locations for obvious reasons to sort of roll this out.
Do you have anything else? The body camera, when I came for the demonstration, it was really interesting. I guess we have some questions. I also want to point out we have the fire marshal here, and we also have Rich Garrett from Second Alarmers here, as always. And do we have any questions or comments?
I'm sorry, I forgot one, John. We have Detective Lieutenant Steve Fink here, and you may have seen this in the page, on our Facebook page, the arrest of 2 individuals that frauded the couple in Willow Grove of defrauded the couple of, in Willow Grove of $3,000, took the deposit to put the ramp in, and then just disappeared to South Carolina. And they were locked up recently, extradited back here. The names of those suspects were Patricia Nellinger and Paul Mullen. They're in custody, and Detective Lieutenant Fink advised me today that Fox 29 picked this story up, and they're going to advertise it and pay to have that ramp completed. So that's a great job by the detectives in getting that out. Great response by the community.
Was your microphone off the whole time before that?
Was it the whole report?
For the whole report? Do we need to repeat the report at all? Okay, then. All right. Do we have...
I wanted to comment on the case that the chief just spoke of. And I'm not sure you want me to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. That was a really stellar job by Sergeant Detective Greg Urban. It took over a year, and they are residents in the ward that I represent. And these were two very senior citizens, both handicapped, both in wheelchairs. And they contracted with this man to build a ramp so that they could get in and out of their home. And he defrauded them. It was a scheme. They gave him a significant deposit, and they left with it. And it took Sergeant Urban a year. And I just want you to know what an incredible job he did, because they left the state, they moved around, and he kept following them. He had a heart for this case, and it really made a difference. And I have to tell you, and sadly, the man died, the elderly man died, and his widow still doesn't have a ramp, so they're going to get a ramp. But they know now that the Abington Police Department is behind them, and I think everybody else should know that this department, our department, went way, way above and beyond to bring these two people to justice. And I'm hugely impressed and extremely grateful. Thank you.
Commissioner Fahey?
Thank you. Chief, I think we all know it was a newsworthy week in our township. I just wanted to thank you for keeping us up to date on your efforts. Clearly, you're on top of the situation, and I never doubt the police department, but again, you've proven just how good you all are, so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other comments? If not, we're going to open it up for a public comment on matters having to do with public safety. Anybody?
Laura Lane and 1431 Bryant Lane. The first question I have is just about your public safety agenda. So we have presentation. There's no presentation, or would Chief Malloy's be considered a presentation?
It's not really a presentation. It's his monthly report, I guess. Or
so
There's always a spot for presentation.
yeah, it always
So
says that.
if you have no presentation, I would appreciate if you would, right after that, none, because that confuses people how long the meeting is, what it is that they're coming for. So you have unfinished business. If there is none, would you kindly put none so that those of us at home know that there is nothing that we need to come for? Same thing with new business. So is there, I assume, no new business?
Nothing written after any of them.
Okay. Could you kindly put none? I mean, this is the first time that I'm seeing the brand-new stuff, okay? And before, there were simply agenda items. If there were 2 agenda items, that's what there was. If there was nothing else, there was nothing else. But this is confusing that somebody doesn't know that there's none, and if you'd kindly put it, that would be nice. Okay, the next thing that I wanted to say is that I sent all of you what should have been a fairly distressing expose on somebody who just received a citation. And amazingly, I got no response back. And almost all of what was in there was geared at resident safety. And I think, if you'll forgive me, Madam Chairman, the atmosphere that you're setting is a township where there is no place to report things, because you know how many times I tried to sit down with you and talk to you about that. There is no place to get a response on something of great consequence, and no way to actually see that anything happened from something that all of you should have been incredibly concerned about. If you read that and you thought something in there was wrong, as a citizen, I certainly would deserve that, but there are documents that back up pretty much everything that's in there is right in a document, right out of a document. So that's a huge concern as to the safety of the residents in this township, because the only way that that went on for so long, and all of you had that certified, by the way, it was sent to you certified. So I certainly hope you read things that are sent certified. But the only way that that went on so long and that so many residents were in danger was because there was no response from you. And again, Madam Chairman, I am not afraid to ask you to step down if you are not going to do what it takes to keep the residents in this township safe.
Your time is almost up.
I'm sure it is. Thank you.
Any other comments from the audience? Commissioners? We'll have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Commissioner Spiegelman? Here. Bowman? Freiberg? Here. DePlacido? Here.
Okay.
Been moved and seconded. Any changes by anyone? No. All right then. Let us vote to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. On the agenda, we have no presentations. We have no unfinished business, so let us get right to the agenda items, starting with PA1. This is a motion, we're going to consider a motion to support the Tacony-Tacony-Frankford Watershed Partnership Project and offer an in-kind contribution of $20,000, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any background information that anyone from Township staff wants to share? It's pretty straightforward, I think, but.
Just jump in. Yes, this would be at Oliver Thorpe Park.
Okay. Great. Here, let's start with questions or comments from the committee, from the board. Commissioner Sanchez, I saw your hand.
Thank you, Commissioner Spiegelman. Just is it our work? What's the nature of the in-kind contribution that we're doing, or is it the donation of property that?
For most of it, we'll be using some of our resources to help move and store material from the project. From what I talked to the contractor about, though, it shouldn't be much. Might just be moving it while they do the work, and then they'll be using most of it back for the project.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Olds. Any other questions from commissioners? From the public?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. I briefly read over that proposal. And, you know, once again, I mean, we have goose stew coming into the water, and we are going to reduce the flow of the water, which will reduce the amount of toxic water that goes downstream. I think, you know, I've sent you, Commissioner especially, because one of their projects was in your ward, where it was just an unbelievably, I'm sorry to use the word, but bogus project, okay? And that is these stream bank things where you go and you put some grasses and things, and half the time the first storm comes and washes it all away, and it costs $20,000, $30,000. We can't even get proper figures for those things. One stream bank that I looked at that they had done just a couple of years before was filled with lesser celandine. Another stream bank that I sent you pictures of, I had pictures where in order to do the project to save the stream, they had sprayed pesticides into the stream. So some of this stuff is just unbelievable use of money. I would like to propose that in this township, that we take the environmental projects, okay? For instance, I drove past my dying forest at the Boy Scout Preserve today. Take the projects and put them in order of importance, and not take important monies and use them for whatever 50 yards of stream bank we want to use them for. This is going to do such a minimal amount for a great amount of money. And I don't think that our needs are being prioritized. I think we are stabbing at this, stabbing at that, and saying, okay, do that and pat yourself on the back. And we have some serious environmental issues here. We have areas where the stream banks have eroded and are threatening people's homes. Those stream banks weren't chosen for any kind of remediation. The money was spent instead to go do something that wasn't threatening anything. So I very much would like to see those things moderated into a list and then done by priority, so that our monies, our tax monies, where ultimately all of this comes from, are spent in a way that is reasonable and fair. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. If there are no further comments, all those in favor? Aye. PA1 passes. On to PA2, where we will consider a motion to approve submitting a letter of intent to apply for a 2019 Tree Vitalize grant in the amount of $16,000, $8,000 from Tree Vitalize and $8,000 from the township cash/in-kind. Our letter of intent was submitted on May 1st, which was the deadline. This in no means commits us to accepting or applying for the grant, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. That was it was a bit of a long intro there. Again, pretty straightforward because we dealt with this before. Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Commissioners in general? Staff or audience?
Laura Lehman, once again, a whole forest dying. Is that at the top of the Tree Vitalized priority list? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
I think we got our address.
All right, let us go ahead and move forward and vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. PA2 passes. Moving on to PA3. This is a motion to adopt ordinance number 2154, adopting a certain intermunicipal agreement for the purchase of pool chemicals and supplies among numerous municipalities and authorizing the township manager to execute said intermunicipal agreement, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I know we discussed this last time, basically the Pool Supplies Consortium, pretty straightforward. Andy, there's nothing you want to add, right? All right then. Questions from the committee, from the board in general, from residents? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. PA3 passes. PA4, this is a slight correction to the text. This is to consider a motion to advertise for adoption ordinance number 2156, amending Chapter 126, Real Estate Registry, Vacant Properties, at Section 126.4-4, Registration Statement and Fees, Local Agent, Subsection D, Waiver of Registration Fees, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Manager, do you want to give any background on this? I know this is only a motion to advertise.
That is correct. As you know, the Vacant Property Review Board has been doing much work to move things along. And I know in this particular case, Commissioner Schreiber has really looked at what can be done also township-wide, but also in Roslyn. So the solicitor, in response to some issues raised, came up with some amended changes for board consideration. And this is your first reading, first time you're seeing this.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, and I do want to thank you, Commissioner Schreiber, because I do think this is going to, this will help us. I know we're going to open this up to questions from the committee. Commissioner Bowman.
The last thing on the item says waiver of registration fee. Is that the item that Commissioner Klein and I had mentioned and I agreed with, that we get rid of the registration fee for when you record a deed?
No, that's a separate issue.
Yeah, this is within the context of vacant property, the Vacant Property Review Board, and the ordinance that created
All right, thanks.
us. Any other questions from the committee first, and then commissioners in general? Commissioner Klein.
On that, do we have an update on where we are with the deed registration fee?
Yes, it'll be a future agenda, probably June or July.
Okay, thank you.
It's highly off topic.
Thanks, Commissioner Bowman, for bringing that back up.
Highly off topic.
What's that?
I said it's highly off topic. It's not. It's a very important topic. Any other questions from commissioners? From the audience?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. I was pretty sure I was at the last vacant property meeting, and I don't remember that coming up and the vacant property committee discussing that. Was I sleeping?
We don't discuss, we carry out the functions of the Vacant Property Review Board. We don't discuss the behind-the-scenes legislation. That's not our purview. We're looking at the properties. Yeah, I mean, you come to the meetings.
So that wouldn't go to the vacant property committee that you set up to administer that and ask for their opinion on it?
We'll solicit the opinion, but I mean, that's something we've been discussing for a while, so.
We don't have those other we're presenting pages, so.
I don't know why I found that funny, but all right, if there are no other questions, all those in favor for the motion to advertise?
Aye.
Aye. We will advertise, PA4. All right, moving on to PA5. We're going to consider a motion to approve a memorandum of understanding between the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, hereafter the PHRC, and the Abington Township Human Relations Commission, hereinafter the ATHRC. We just think of it as the HRC, and I so move.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. We have here my friend Joanne Kleiner from the HRC. Come and introduce yourself.
Joanne Kleiner, 1077 Pheasant Road, Rydell, Pennsylvania. And I'm the chairman, not the chairman, I'm the chair of the Abington Human Relations Commission.
That's a
Sorry,
close one.
it's been a long day.
That's a close one.
Do you have a question?
No,
let me help
Do
out.
do you want me to explain it to you?
Yeah, if you would like to parse it for everyone, that'd be,
Yeah, sure.
that'd be great.
Basically, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act requires that we and the State Commission notify one another of complaints that we receive, and when we receive complaints that fall within their jurisdiction and vice versa. The Pennsylvania HRC has a very short statute of limitations. Complainants have 180 days to file. And the case law is unsettled as to whether if a complainant files with us, if their rights are preserved under the state act. So in order to avoid any potential problems, because the case law is unsettled, if somebody files with us, we advise them that a complaint must be filed with the State Human Relations Commission within 180 days, which we've done that anyway. If we receive a complaint that does not really pertain to classes that are protected only by the Abington ordinance, we refer them to the state in any event. But now we would give them information on filing a claim with the state HRC. They can file it online, or they can file it with us, and we would then forward it to Pennsylvania HRC. With a dual filing, we each have the obligation to advise the respondent of the claim and to preserve records. We have where the complainant has the option of first coming to mediate the claim with us. Even if it's a claim that would fall under the purview of the state HRC, they can come and mediate with us. The Pennsylvania HRC will then not act on the complaint until we notify them that it's either resolved, mediation has failed, or an expiration of 6 months. For employment claims, we also notify them of the right to file with the EEOC, and for housing claims, with the right to file with HUD. Part of the purpose of the memorandum of understanding is to protect people because of the short statute of limitations. The other is to promote alternative dispute resolution, giving them more of an opportunity to come and mediate with us without having their claim be jeopardized. And then there's also a confidentiality provision, which we observe that anyway. If anything would come into us, we have to keep it confidential. By state law, proceedings of mediations are always confidential. Mediator can never be subpoenaed to come to court and testify about what happened. So with this information sharing procedure now, we maintain the confidentiality. If we're subpoenaed, if we're served with any type of request for release of information, we have to notify the state, give them an opportunity to try and protect the information first. And one thing that I didn't mention is the memorandum of understanding is 5-year term. We can terminate it upon 30 days' notice. If neither side terminates, it continues automatically for an additional 5 years. The confidentiality provision also has a 30-day termination period. So.
Great, thank you for that. It's very comprehensive. Commissioner Schreiber.
So Joanne, if somebody comes to Abington for mediation, had filed with Pennsylvania but came to Abington for a mediation and didn't like the mediator or what happened, can they still go with Pennsylvania at that point?
Yes, because if they've filed with the state, they've preserved their rights, but they're given a chance to resolve it outside of litigation first. The whole point is that they have the opportunity now to preserve their rights under the state law because they can't go to court unless they have first filed with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. You cannot go, you can't walk into court and just say, I'm filing a complaint against somebody because they discriminated me on the basis of race or they discriminated against me on the basis of religion. You first have to go through the steps, and one of the steps is filing with Pennsylvania Human Relations. You only have 180 days to do that. So this way they can file there, preserve their rights, but potentially avoid going to court by coming to us for mediation.
And it'll be cases from Abington?
Yes.
So somebody
because they're making these arrangements with all the municipalities that have their own ordinances.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Myers.
But they can file directly with Abington. They don't have to go through the state.
Well, it depends. Yes, they can, but there's a but to that.
Okay.
The but is if it is a claim that deals with anything that's covered under state law. Remember, we have protected classes in Abington that are not covered under state and federal law. So for those, they have to come to us because we're the only ones that can deal with it. For example, anything involving LGBT issues are not covered under state and federal law. So the only recourse anybody has for that type of claim is to come to us. If it's a claim with protected classes under state and federal law, race, religion, age, ethnic background, that sort of thing, they have the option of coming to us or going to the state, up until this. But if they came to us, they would be foreclosing their rights under the state law and under federal law. So what would happen is if either the other side wouldn't agree to mediate or the mediation didn't result in a resolution, then they were stuck. They did not have the option to litigate. So now, if they come to us, we advise them to go to the state as well. The state holds it, gives them the opportunity to first do a more peaceful resolution with us, and their rights are still preserved.
How many complaints have you had?
We haven't, although I do know that there were 2 complaints from Abington with the state HRC. They would not disclose the nature of them because we had not yet entered into the MOU, so I don't know what they are.
But if you don't mind, in subsequent cases like that, the state would disclose.
They would disclose, and they would first send them back to us.
Okay, right, understood. Anyone else from the committee? Commissioner Bowman?
Just someone who wants to sue has to get a right to sue letter from the state. So if
Correct.
they're going to sue, they got to go to the state.
Correct, that's
Thank
right.
Commissioner Fahey.
Ms. Kleiner, I think I understood that you haven't had issues where a complainant was confused about their rights to file with the state and file with you instead. I was unaware of this could be a problem, and I want to make sure that people are not blowing the statute by filing with us and not filing with the state.
Exactly,
Okay.
and that's to forestall that problem, so
Okay.
that we don't run into that. Because the concern is the case law is unsettled on that, if they preserve their rights or not. So in order to get around that, we're having them basically file in both places, but handled with us first, and that way their rights aren't jeopardized.
And as far as you know, that hasn't actually happened.
Not to my knowledge,
Okay.
but I don't know if somebody's gone to the state and had that sort of issue.
Okay, thanks.
Any other?
One more.
Oh, Commissioner Meyer.
I just want to say that I know the committee has really done a wonderful job in going out to different civic associations and educating them, particularly Rotary clubs and Kiwanis clubs, and your committee has really done a good job with that.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Joanne, thank you. Thank you so
you.
much for that presentation. No further questions from commissioners, from the audience? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
PA 5 passes. Finally, we have PA 6. This is a motion to consider the following appointments to specific boards, commissions, and committees. And they are: to the Library Board of Trustees, Lauren Greaves, for a term ending December 31st, 2020. For the Shade Tree Commission, Colin Watson, for a term ending December 31st, 2022. And for the Environmental Advisory Council, Bruce Cox, for a term ending December 31st, 2020. And I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pretty straightforward. We're making our way through through all the committee assignments. Are there any questions from members of the board? Commissioner Myers?
These names, these were the recommended folks
Yes.
from each individual committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Vahey?
Just want to put a plug in for my constituent Colin Watson. Colin and his company ProMark have donated tons of trees to the township parks. He's been invaluable, especially at Howell Park in my backyard. So I'm enthusiastic about his recommendation.
He's a great guy. He made quite an impression. Any other comments from commissioners? The audience? Mr. Manfredi?
Or to be specific to Commissioner Myers, the recommendation for the library board actually was originated from the library.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, okay.
Correct. All right. Let us vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, then. That concludes our formal agenda, and to keep things moving, I won't solicit comment from Commissioners Hecker and Sanchez about how incredibly efficiently this has moved, and we're going to move right on to public comment.
I only need 10 minutes to go through that.
Public comment for the specific purview of the Public Affairs Committee.
So one of the things I'd also like to make you aware of, which I think you already are aware of, is that many people who come here don't know what's pertinent to what committee, okay? And so leeway for residents to help them into their government is a better idea than rigidity. I had worked long and hard with former Chief Livengood in reference to the Police Pension Association, which I just received in the mail again. In my mind, that's almost a scam. It looks like it is directly from Abington, and that you really need to contribute to the police pension. And by the way, here's your information. And if you don't send it in, are they going to come when you call the police? So first of all, it's not from the police. It isn't even picked up by the police, although apparently some former retired officers pick up this information. This information that is for the police files shouldn't be going to somewhere else. It should go directly to the police files. But this little card actually also makes it look like it's coming from the official Abington Police, and it's not. It's a nonprofit, and they can do whatever they want with that money. And they don't do what one might expect from the letter you get. And Chief Livengood had put a sentence in there. I did not see that sentence in there anymore. That was a short attempt at explaining that a little bit. I would like to see that done. I feel like that's, you know, a scam. The other thing I'd like to say is Montgomery County's budget is, I think, $409 million they're up to. And it's important stuff for us to know. It's a great chunk of our tax money. Could we please get their meetings on our channel where people will bump into them and begin to see them? At the moment, they're on the Upper Dublin channel, which sometimes people might accidentally bump into, but they're more likely to on our channel if they're looking. So I would ask, please, if you could do that. The other thing is the speaking minutes have gone south. As I said before, you added in, I don't know why at one point there was a need to have meetings and public comment before you changed the speaking minutes, and then all of a sudden they're changing whenever you feel like changing them without any public comment and without any formal vote on the changes. The last change said that now when we ask questions, we're supposed to sit down, wait till all the people have commented that want to comment, and then come back and ask the question. You know that doesn't work. You have watched me time and time again need one little answer to something before I could move on to clarify something so that I wasn't wrong about what I was basing my premise on before we moved on. So if you're trying to cut people out of their government, those rules are great. If you're trying to help people into their government, they're not. And as you can see by the number of people you have in this room, besides my husband and myself, I think we're counting 3, this is the problem, is that people are cut out rather than encouraged in. And I do hope that you will consider changing that and making this a friendlier place where you understand that if there's a thing that says presentation, you understand that most people might say, oh, how long is that presentation going to be? When in fact, a simple none after it would answer that question for them. So we really need to work together.
So your 3 minutes
Yeah,
expired. If you could please
I know,
wrap up.
they're up. We really need to work together towards making this a resident-friendly place. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. All right. That was record time for this number of agenda items. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Wait, oh, I'm sorry.
Matt Toomey, 2102 Fortune Road. I'm new. I just came here. I saw it on the calendar. I just decided to show up.
Okay.
So just to let you know, I disagree with that statement that it isn't friendly. It was nothing else. But just look at the calendar. I'm a resident in Abington. I just showed up, walked right up here, came right in, and that's all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I didn't see you. I was taken so pleasantly by surprise. Thank you. Now that's called ending on a high note. Any other comments or residents? All right. Now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.